If you were trapped in a haunted school at night, what choices would you make?
Bruce, Mark, and Charles are known to the students of Dawson Middle School as the Unholy Three. When the school principal, Mrs. Brown, catches the boys terrorizing another student, she has had enough of their bad behavior. She gives the boys a choice. They can either go home with letters to their parents about their bullying behavior, or they can spend the weekend in the school alone, cleaning out the haunted crawl space under the auditorium stage. Readers of The Crawl Space will also have choices. Make decisions for Bruce, Mark, and Charles to help them get through the many trials that they will face alone at Dawson Middle School. Here's an excerpt from page 45. Which door should they choose? If you choose Charles's door, go to page 46. If you choose Bruce's door, go to page 50. If you choose Mark's door, go to page 58. Bruce, Mark, and Charles decided to take the door Charles had found, since he was the one who came up with the idea in the first place. After staying in the nightmare corridor for so long, the room the three boys entered seemed like it was bathed in bright white fluorescent light. Maybe we should have taken one of the other doors. Charles was already doubtful about his choice. By urging his friends to follow his plan to escape, had he led them into more trouble? We still can. I say we go back. As Mark uttered those words, his eyes glanced toward the door from which they had emerged. To his utter shock, the door was no longer there. "Where's the door?" he yelped, his voice like that of a frightened puppy. He didn't like the way things were appearing and then disappearing as they pleased. Everything seemed to have a life of its own today at what they had considered to be an ordinary, boring school. They were all speechless. As they stood staring at the ground in front of them, the sound of loud footsteps came toward them. The footsteps seemed like they were in a hurry to reach the boys. Charles clutched Bruce's arm in fear. "What was that?" The three boys stood with their backs to each other, facing in three different directions. Now, even Bruce didn't feel any embarrassment in holding his friend's hands. "Who is it and what do you want?" yelled Charles, surprising even himself by the loudness of his voice. Suddenly, they heard the sound of footsteps again running toward them. They came closer and closer, and this time they ended with a sharp thwack. It took Charles and Mark a few seconds to realize Bruce was down on the floor. He held his palm across his face where the marks of a small handprint had turned his skin red, and blood flowed down his nose onto his chest. Then, as Charles crouched next to Bruce, fearing the worst, he heard the footsteps come right up to Mark. And suddenly, Mark lost his balance and fell on the ground. To Charles' utter shock, Mark seemed to be dragged by some powerful force directly into one of the walls. Charles screamed and tried to pull back at Mark's feet, but the force that pulled at Mark was too strong. Alone in the school at night, the three boys soon discover that the crawl space is not the only part of the school that is haunted. Together, they realize that every decision in life is not ultimately black and white or right or wrong. Help Bruce, Mark, and Charles make the right decisions and survive their haunted weekend at school in this new Choose Your Own Adventure book by Arthur M. Mills. Now available at these retailers.